In this video, we're going to talk about two keys that we look for and that we want to adopt post-impact and throughout the follow-through. We're also going to discuss a couple of skill development things you can implement into your practice to kind of enhance your feeling of what these particular parameters that we're going to talk about are doing. So the first one we're going to discuss is going to be the lead wrist, its role post-impact, and the second one we're going to talk about is also the lead forearm. Now these two things are going to kind of go hand in hand, but we just kind of want to show what things are unfolding post-impact once the ball has already left the face, and how we can kind of feel what certain things mean and how that relates to club face control. One thing I do want to note with what Chad took you through in our last video, coming down into delivery to impact and those types of characteristics, is that impact is just a moment in time. It's a really good thing to remember. Sometimes we get so fixated on creating this desirable impact position that we actually lose sight that that is just something that is passing by. It's nothing that's being maintained or stopped right there at impact. It's just a pure moment in time. Kind of want to take that a step further and actually describe that the best players in the world, when they're at this point of impact, they're actually in the process of getting rid of some of those wrist angles that we see and that we really like. For example, their lead wrist, we'll start with that, is in a nice flex position. Well, it doesn't stay flexed the entire time. If it did, there would be no true release of the club. So from down the line, we'd get into this impact here, coming through, and if this lead wrist stays flexed, you can see there we get into some really unorthodox finishes in our swing. The lead wrist is also going to be responsible for somewhat of what the lead forearm wants to do. So if the lead wrist stays flexed for too long, that forearm isn't going to want to operate the way that we need it to in order to continue this nice fluid release through the ball. Okay, so once they're at impact, we actually see them start to go towards extension. That extension of the lead wrist actually is a form of keeping the face square through the shot. So what we'll see is they're here through impact, and then as opposed to keeping it there, lead wrist flex, they're at impact, and then they're getting rid of that. So you can see right here, I've got that shape in my lead wrist where it's actually slightly cupped. Perfectly normal to have this type of integrity after the ball is gone. Like we've mentioned in previous videos, the wrists are constantly changing form and changing shape. The second topic we want to discuss is the lead forearm. What do we see with the lead forearm? Well, oftentimes we see people who may hit pulls and slices, get into this chicken wing look. Some of that root cause is stemmed from having their lead wrist cupped too soon. So when they're coming down, looks more of this type of position. And the body, the way the arm wants to operate from here is it wants to retract in. When the lead wrist gets too far extended, it's not really in a position to where it wants to fold or rotate around a little bit the way we need it to. It wants to retract. It's just our body does a great job of taking the path of least resistance. So if we're getting our positions inaccurately right here at impact, but trying to achieve something else, we're going to end up doing whatever our body wants to do innately, because that's typically going to be less painful and again, just kind of the path of least resistance. So what we see with the lead forearm coming through is it's actually rotating a little bit. Part of that has to do with the lead wrist being flexed at impact. And as it's rotating, it's also now going to find a form to where it can actually fold. Again, this is all happening while that lead wrist is extending through. So we'll see that lead forearm is rotating, and then now it's in a position to fold up. Okay, so the wrist and forearm may work slightly independently of each other. However, the lead wrist has a lot to do with how the lead forearm is going to respond. So now we want to take you through a couple of drills here that you can do. And really, what we're just looking for is to try to find a desirable ball flight. So if you've had the tendency of hitting pulls or slices, you're typically coming in with this lead wrist too extended. So we need to add some flexion in that lead wrist. So what we're gonna do is we're just gonna hit some soft shots out there and feel a low draw type of shot. So as you can see right here, my finish, felt the low draw. So my lead forearm has rotated. My lead wrist is in a much more flat state right here. So it stayed flexed for a much longer. So that is what helped assisted me in getting that shot to come out low and coming out with a draw. So after you've hit a couple shots like that, we're going to transition to feeling some hide fades. So what we'll see in the integrity of this follow through is much higher finish with the hands. We'll also see more extension in that lead wrist, which will help us keep that face a little bit more stable, if not maybe slightly open coming through, which will help us hit that fade. So we'll go ahead and hit a high fade out there. Okay, so once you go back and forth between these shots, really it's not so much the outcome of the shots that we're looking for. It's just more about developing a little bit more of an awareness of if we can feel what the lead wrist and the lead forearm are doing through the ball. These feelings are super sensitive. Any type of feeling we look at in the golf swing is going to be very individual to whoever it is. Each person's going to feel things slightly different, so it's okay if you discover something that maybe you've never heard before or maybe seems a little outside the box. That's fine, because everyone's going to feel things a little bit differently. But being able to develop a skill where you can hit certain types of shots means that your body, specifically your arms and your wrist, are adapting accordingly to get that desired ball flight. So once you've practiced these, you'll be able to gain a little bit more awareness of the club face, which ultimately is going to lead into a little bit more club face control through the strike and being able to control the trajectory as well.